What's up, my friends, and welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. As always, we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And TrueMark Financial Credit Union, head on over to any one of their 24 branch locations or online, truemark.com/PHLY to get started today. Well, it hasn't been that long since I last left you, but hello and welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here, and a happy Friday to you all across the Delaware Valley and beyond. We've made it to the end of another work week and the final full work week for most of the 2025 calendar year. With the holidays just around the corner, I'm sure you have some time off next week, some time off the following week. It is the final full week of the calendar year. So kick back, relax, enjoy time with family, friends, and away from work, and hopefully with us here at the PHLY Phillies podcast. So welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being a part of it. The Phillies, as you may or may not know, have traded Matt Strahm today. And we did an emergency podcast just a little over 90 minutes ago. So for those that didn't get a chance to see it, if you want a condensed version, you can head on over to that one. I hope you do it after the show. I hope you hang around for the rest of the show. If you'd like a little bit more of an extended, longer conversation about this Matt Strahm trade, well, you've come to the right place here at the PHLY Phillies podcast. But here's what we've got coming up on this Friday edition of the PHLY Phillies podcast. Of course, we're going to start with the big news. The Phillies trading Matt Strahm to the Kansas City Royals in exchange for right-handed reliever Jonathan Bowlan. The next thing that I want to get into, we have 4 days until Munetake Murakami makes a decision, or has to make a decision, as his posting date is December 22nd at 5 p.m. That's Monday. So you basically have this weekend to make a decision. We'll do some other things. We'll talk about the latest starting pitcher to sign a deal, which is Michael King, who's back with the San Diego Padres. And we'll wrap up today's show with a little Friday trivia like we do each and every Friday. So welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here, Ethan Hartley with us as well, and you hanging out with us in the chat. So to rehash, if you did not get a chance to watch the emergency pod or you didn't see what the news was, the Phillies have traded Matt Strahm to the Kansas City Royals in exchange for right-handed reliever Jonathan Bowlan. So my initial thoughts on this trade are, if this is just a move, then this is a downgrade. If this is a move that sets up financial flexibility, then we do have to take a wait-and-see approach. Now, this is not a knock on Jonathan Bowlan. I'm going to get into his numbers and what he does well in a little bit. But the thing that I've talked about many, many times over the course of the last 2+ years on this show is I'm a big Matt Strahm fan. I think Matt Strahm pitches with moxie. I think he pitches with poise. I think he's willing to attack both lefties and righties. I think he's had good time, a really good tenure with the Phillies. And the numbers over the last 2 years have been very, very good. 2024, he was an all-star. He was excellent. In 2025, I thought he was good. Maybe the metrics starting to trend in a little bit of a wrong direction. The ground ball rates are low. He wasn't generating as command or as much dominance as he did in 2024, but numerically, it was another strong season. And if you take a look at the 3 years that Matt Strahm has put together as a member of the Phillies, there is no question about it. He has been an ultra-valuable member of this pitching staff, both starting. He made a couple of spot starts early in 2023 out of necessity, and then out of the bullpen for much of 23 and all of 24 and 25. So his 3 years with the Phillies, he made almost 200 appearances. He pitched to a 2.71 ERA. Over 212 innings pitched, and well over a strikeout per inning pitched at 257. The 52 walks over 212 innings pitched is a really good number to me. I think that comes out to be just over 4 walks, a walk per 4 innings pitched, which is a really strong number, especially from a reliever. And it's why you see the fact that he had a sub-1 whip in his 3 years as a member of the Phillies. You know how much I value Matt Strahm in this bullpen. And I know I've talked to some, and there's been a wide range of appreciation for Matt Strahm, where some sit with it where I sit, and I love Matt Strahm. I've talked to people here at PHLY. Devon Givens and I have gone back and forth on Matt Strahm for 3 years now, and I know Devon doesn't like Matt Strahm nearly as much as I do. And the thing that I always tried to say to Devon, and to try to sway him a little bit, and to those that maybe weren't the biggest of Matt Strahm fans, was this was a guy who I trusted. Maybe not in inherited runner spots. We know that role went to Tanner Banks against the lefties. But a guy that I trusted when he was coming into the 7th inning or the 8th inning, I trusted him to nail that inning down. I trusted him to have positional flexibility within the bullpen, meaning structure-wise, he could pitch the 7th, he could pitch the 8th. If your closer needed a day off, he could become your de facto 9th inning guy. for a day or two. It's a guy who had flexibility, a guy who was willing to pitch to both lefties and to righties and challenge them up in the zone, challenge them with stuff that, while it wasn't the best stuff in the world, he had just enough on his fastball, just enough on his slider, just enough on those other auxiliary pitches, the cutter and the changeup, where he mixed well and changed speeds and threw strikes and attacked hitters, that there was a whole lot of value from him, especially from the left side. Good arm slot, good hide the ball ability, funky delivery, through his wind-up motion. There was a lot to like about Matt Strahm over his time here. And I'm going to miss Matt Strahm. I will. I like the way that he pitched over the last 3 years. With that being said, that last line at the bottom, I think, is the reason as to why the Phillies made this move. The Phillies had 3 left-handed relievers that they trusted heading into this season. They had Matt Strahm, they had Tanner Banks, and they had Jose Alvarado. And I said this on the emergency pod, so I apologize if you're watching again. But the reason that Matt Strahm, we settled on Matt Strahm being the guy that might get moved is because of contractual value. Now, Jose Alvarado is on the final year of his deal as well, but the difference is the Phillies picked up Jose Alvarado's club option, and they did it pretty swiftly. And for $9 million, it's not cheap in terms of relief work. So they picked up his club option and did it swiftly, despite the fact that he was suspended for half the season last year. The reason being is they know Jose Alvarado's stuff is elite when it's on. His cutter off the back foot, I have said many, many times to right-handed hitters, when that pitch is on, it's one of the most unhittable pitches in baseball. And he goes 100-mile-an-hour fastball paired with that pitch. You're going to have to battle through the command stuff at times. You're going to have to battle through, Jose Alvarado sometimes gets a little wild. And he has his control falters at times. And that's just something you live with Jose Alvarado, because the good heavily outweighs the bad. And I think the Phillies view it the same way. That's their power left-handed arm out of the bullpen. So it came down to Matt Strahm and Tanner Banks. And the reason that it was Matt Strahm and not Tanner Banks was the fact that Tanner Banks has several years of team control left, and Matt Strahm is on the final year of his deal. His vested option was for $7.5 million because every time he got up past 40 innings pitched, he made $1 million. Past 50 innings pitched, he made $1 million. Past 60 innings pitched, he made $1 million. So it was a $4.5 million base salary that prorated to $7.5 million because of those benchmarks. So Matt Strahm was set to make $7.5 million. Jose Alvarado was set to make $9 million. You just signed Brad Keller to a 2-year, $22 million deal, which sets you to $11 million. The reason the Phillies traded Matt Strahm was financial compensation. That is the reason that they made this move. Jonathan Bowlan is making just over league minimum at $820,000 next season. We'll get to him in just a little bit. But you take $7.5 million, you subtract $820,000, and you're left with just under $6.7 million of cap flexibility. That's the reason the Phillies made this move today. And while I don't know what Jonathan Bowlan's future holds as a member of the Phillies bullpen, I do know that I trust Matt Strahm a whole heck of a lot more at this very specific moment. Bowlan may turn out to be a guy with plus stuff and get him with Caleb Cotham, have him with team control. And I think that, maybe there's some stuff to work with. Excuse me one second. Apologies. A little congested today. It's what happens when you have a 6-month straight sick baby, or at least it seems that way. Anyway, Bowlan is a guy with team control. The stuff looks good. We'll talk about that in just a little bit as well. This move was strictly monetary. Now, I will say this. This $7 million or near $7 million that you just acquired, you better reallocate it somewhere else. It's what we talked about on Wednesday. Dave Dombrowski said the outfield is pretty much set, and that frustrated me, which means you are pretty limited on where you're going to make moves. Is it at third base? Is it at second base? Is it a catcher decision that is not JT Realmuto? Is it starting pitching? Because I think your bullpen's pretty much set, especially with the acquisition of Brad Keller this past week. So I think your bullpen's pretty set. If your outfield is set, you're not going anywhere at first, you're not going anywhere at short, and you're clearly not going anywhere at DH with the re-sign of Kyle Schwarber. You have pretty limited options as to where the money is going to be reallocated. But there is no doubt in my mind that money needs to be if this is just a pocket pool play, it doesn't do anything for me. This needs to be a reallocation of funds to someone else to make this team better. Because at this very moment, and again, no disrespect to Jonathan Bowlan, this trade made the Phillies slightly. I'm not going to sit here and say it's like catastrophic, sky is falling, and I'm not screaming into the oblivion, but right this very moment, it made the Phillies worse. Slightly. And you lose a left-handed reliever, probably the top available one in the trade market this offseason. And when I talked about Jose Ferrer a couple weeks ago, getting traded to the Seattle Mariners from the Washington Nationals, Jose Ferrer netted the Washington Nationals Harry Ford, which was a guy that a lot of Phillies fans wanted as maybe an immediate catcher plug-and-play type of guy, but it's, at the very least, somebody who could eventually take over for JT Realmuto. And I think Harry Ford is going to be a really good major league hitter. I'd be interested to see what kind of major league catcher he becomes, but I do know that he's going to be a pretty darn good major league hitter. And so the reason that the Mariners went with that deal was team control. Ferrer has significantly more team control than Matt Strahm did. And I'm not sitting here saying that there was a trade on the table and Strahm was involved in all of that. But when you think about a left-handed reliever going for a potential future starting catcher, you would have to assume the Phillies would have been at least moderately interested in a Harry Ford type of player. So the return on Matt Strahm tells me one of two things. First and foremost, the market for Matt Strahm, while he was super valuable in the trade market, may have been softened a little bit by the fact that he's a rental per se. It's a full year of control, but it is a rental nonetheless. He'll become a free agent next season. The second thing is, I wonder how much other value the Phillies were offered elsewhere. Because Jonathan Bowlan, who, again, we'll talk about in just a moment, has some good metrics. We're going to look into his slider and his sinker, which I think are his two best pitches. But he's out of options, which means that Bowlan's going to be on the roster this year. He's going to be in the bullpen. There's no question in my mind he's in the bullpen at this point. He's out of club options. So he's going to be here in 2026. So you've traded a lefty for a right-hander with team control and a significantly lower AAV. And that is done specifically to reallocate those funds and go get somebody else. Now, before we get into Bowlan specifically, I talked about this a lot on the emergency pod, so now you've heard me talk about this trade for basically a half an hour. So I want to welcome our second member of today's program into the show. It's our producer, our co-host, Ethan Hartley, to the show. First and foremost, Ethan, a happy Friday to you. Another weekend as we get closer and closer to the holidays. And I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this on the emergency pod today because we really quickly threw it together. Thanks for all your work behind the scenes on everything, by the way. I wanted to get your thoughts on this trade because you know how much I love Matt Strahm. So this, to me, screams specifically monetary trade. What are your thoughts on this move?
Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat. On Wednesday, we raved about how much depth and how well fleshed out this bullpen group was. And so I understand from a monetary perspective that a move needs to be made and you get some player with positives to grow on, right? And you dived into it on the emergency pod. I will dive into it later that, there is some stuff to like about Bowlan. And so it's more of wait and see. It depends on what kind of value comes from that. But I think at the reasoning, as you have mentioned, is strictly monetary. And I get it, but again, this isn't a team that needs to shed salary by any means. It needs to be a reallocation of funds into some other player that can help contribute to winning now, whether that's re-signing JT, maybe somehow getting an offer to Ranger that might seem fitting into the market, whatever it might be. But again, this can't just be like, we're shedding salary just to shed salary.
Well,
we're way past that point.
Here's the thing too. Shedding salary in all three of the other major sports leagues happens all the time. We've seen, the NHL has been a huge victim of salary shedding because their salary cap has effectively flatlined for what's it been, 3 seasons now?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's not nearly as exponential as other sports.
Right. But so like the NHL has been the biggest victim of it, but we've seen other teams do it to skirt the luxury tax in the NBA, to skirt they use the term aprons in the NBA. The NFL is a hard salary cap. You have to figure out how to manipulate that throughout the year. It's why Howie Roseman's so good at it because he just continues to kick the can down the road. Baseball is entirely different because you don't necessarily have to salary dump. Now, the Phillies are above that tax threshold, which means they're basically paying $2 on every dollar above it. There's only I understand there's only a finite pool to go around in terms of salary and how much you're willing to spend and how much you're willing to pay into the luxury tax threshold and how much are you willing to pay into the luxury tax threshold where your draft pick starts to fall back, and all of that gets in play. And I totally get that. I'm not trying to be short-sighted in that regard, but I do think baseball is the only one where if you're going to smash the luxury tax, smash the luxury tax. Mm-hmm. And so for me, when I look at this trade, I get why they did it. It frees up, I don't want to say significant money, but it's not nothing. Almost $7 million could net you another player. It could be the difference between being able to offer $20 million and $25 million or 15 and 20. So I'm not oblivious to knowing how this monetary situation unfolds. But I do think that you don't necessarily have to make this move if you're willing to go over the budget that you have set. So there has to be some boundaries in this conversation to say they didn't have to do this, but I also understand why they did this. Now, the Bowlan part of it, he's 29 years old and he's out of options. So he's not young by any means. He's going to be on the roster this year because you don't make this trade. And unless he absolutely positively sucks, which I don't see that happening, even if I don't know how much I'm going to be excited about him.
They certainly should have done more due diligence when looking at guys they could have traded for and thinking that, all right, there's something here that we can work with. We'll take a chance and fly on that.
Sure. And so I think that I am curious. I wonder if the market will ever reveal itself to what the Phillies could have made or what the Phillies could have acquired in exchange for Matt Strahm. Now, the Bowlan part of it, we'll do in the second segment. We'll talk more about him in the second segment. I guess really the question of today's show is what's next. And I have laid out there, we know that if the outfield's quote unquote set and the bullpen feels pretty much locked in, I would think, with maybe the exception of something, either a low end move or an unforeseen signing that we're traded that we didn't expect. First base is solid, shortstop solid, DH is solid, outfield being quote unquote set. That's 6 spots. Catcher position, to me, feels like it's still going to be JT, right? Even though that they may have the ability to pivot to somewhere else, or maybe they're going to initially or eventually have to pivot somewhere else, still feels like it's going to be JT at least for next year. That really leaves you 3 positions or 2 positions and the starting pitching group. I have long said I would not be shocked if the Phillies add another starter, be either the trade market or free agency. I don't know how much they're going to go spend in free agency, but I've long said I would not be shocked if they add another starter, especially knowing Wheeler won't be healthy to start the year. Jesus Luzardo is on the final year of his deal. I just think that there's a lot of variables that could theoretically make the Phillies want to make an acquisition for a starter. But the other spot is third base, which gets us to the Murakami conversation that we're going to have later, which gets us to Bregman, which gets us to any one of pivot points. But what this specific trade tells me is that the Phillies are looking to free up space monetarily to go acquire somebody else. And until they do that, there's going to feel like a lot of limbo. And that's unfortunate as fans and somebody that covers the team and all of us that love this baseball team. That limbo time period, whether it's this weekend and we find out about Murakami, it's later in the month, it's later in the offseason, we're going to be in that spot for some time and wondering what's that almost $7 million going towards. And when I talk about that $7 million, it's really only the 1 year. Because, Ethan, you and I have talked about it this week. Flexibility next season exists. Castellanos is 20, Taijuan Walker's 18, Strahm's now 7.5. Even if he'd have been here, would have come off the books next year. Alvarado's 9 comes off the books. There is some monetary movement. Now, some of that is going to have to get put to Jesus Luzardo if you want to keep him, which I expect they probably do. But you do have some money in 27. That's where just kind of biting the bullet in 26 comes into play. So if you have an extra $6.5–7 million to spend, maybe that softens the blow a little bit. So until they make that trade or that signing, I think we're going to be in limbo with why they made this move. So on the other side, let's talk about Jonathan Bowlan, talk about the type of pitcher that he is, what I like, what I'm concerned about. We'll talk more about Murakami's posting period coming to a near end next week. And we'll wrap up today's show with a little bit of Friday Phillies trivia as we do. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we'll be right back after this. All right, with the winter months in full swing, you know that means we have an incredible slate of sports across a bunch of different platforms, whether it be pro football playoffs about to start, college football playoff in full swing, and how about this, pro hockey, pro hoops, and college hoops, all right there for your watching enjoyment. And if you call yourself a sports fan, you have to get Xfinity. There's no lagging, no buffering, no switching between apps. It's just the best sporting destination where you can find all of the best games and your favorite teams all in one place. It's the perfect fan flex where you get all of that action right there in your living room. And with crystal clear optics, enhanced sound with 4K, it's going to feel like you're at the arena or at the stadium anyway, and you don't have to worry about battling traffic and paying for tickets. And sometimes you can have up to 4 games going at once with the quad box, because why not? You can. And on top of that, you get real-time notifications and live stats right there on your TV. So next game day, make sure that big fan in your life isn't a big fail. Tell them to learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with our friends over at Bet365. You find out why 90 million users worldwide have teamed up with Bet365 because they are the live in-game betting pioneers. You can get in on constantly changing lines, and you can live stream 780,000 different events each and every year across 78 different sporting platforms. They offer awesome early payout across the NHL. If your team goes up by 3 goals at any point, your bet is going to be marked as a winner. And how about this? Right now, new users who sign up with Bet365, use that promo code on the bottom of the screen there, PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for just $5, and you'll get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. You can use that bonus bet money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and a heck of a lot more. You find out why it's never ordinary with our friends over at Bet365. You must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1. You know, the Phillies just like to make moves while we're on the air, don't they? They have done this to me 4 times now in the last 3 days. Monday, they go acquire Adolis Garcia right before the show starts. Wednesday, they sign Brad Keller. Friday, they trade Matt Strahm, and now we have another trade. Now, this is not breaking news trade. This is depth trade. The Phillies have acquired a left-handed reliever by the name of Kyle Backus from the Arizona Diamondbacks in exchange for minor league outfielder Avery Owusu-Asiadu. So the Phillies go out and get a lefty, I guess, to potentially backfill their lefty depth. Now, I legitimately do not know anything about this guy. Have no idea what this guy does, what he does well. He made 32 appearances last year for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He posted a 4.62 ERA. He is a lefty, sidewinder, near submarine type of guy. His arm angle, Ethan, 9th percentile or ninth degree. So he's basically here. Like, I'm trying to do this so 90 degrees would be, right? 90 would be like this, right? Like straight up, it's physically impossible, right? And negative 90 would be basically softball. So when I think about like submarine, Tyler Rogers, I think is in like the minus 60th percentile or degree. So 9 is basically just above just above parallel to the ground. So he's a lefty reliever, doesn't throw particularly hard, 91 miles an hour average fastball. Gets good extension. He's 6'4", but he also sidewinder. Didn't get barreled a ton last year. I'm just basically reading his Baseball Savant page because I don't know a whole lot about the guy. We'll do a little bit of a deeper dive in a minute. Limits hard hit contact, doesn't generate a whole lot of chase, and doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. Average exit velos are pretty good, 89 miles an hour on average. But he just pitched 25 innings last year, and it was his only year in the big leagues. So sinker, sweeper, a little bit of change up, but mostly sinker, sweeper. Over 90% of his pitches are sinker, sweeper. And I think it was pretty. This to me, Ethan, feels like kind of a lefty backfill type of trade.
Yeah, just taking another swing on somebody who can potentially fill that role for. I mean, again, we don't know all the metrics on the player just yet. We have it obviously happening just now. But
Limited sample size. Lefties hit 139 against them last year. I think that he's probably, my guess would be he's probably really difficult to pick up from the lefty arm slot. Trying to think if there's anything else specific. As the sweeper 087 was the expected batting average last year. He only gave up 3 extra base hits, a pair of doubles, and 1 home run. 42% whiff rate on the sweeper against left-handed hitters. So I think this feels like taking a flyer on a lefty type of thing.
No, I agree. It's certainly just someone to replace, see what kind of skill set they can use to make him a better player. I mean, he has major league experience, so I do expect to see some time for him this year. But yeah, we'll see what they can do.
So that's the other news that they just made. So let's get back to the conversation at hand. But first, I want to say hello to everybody hanging out here with us in the chat. Andrew, Elephant in the Room, David, Mickey Durkin, Rich, Ray Schumacher. Who else is here? Chris Slem, James, Dude. That's Dude's name. Dude with, I want to say it's about 9 E's. So Dude is here. Lewis is here. Michael, RF. Some new faces here today, too. So first and foremost, thanks for being a part of today's show. I see CJ earlier in the chat. If I missed you, I apologize. Thanks so much for being a part of today's show. If you're here all the time, we love you. We appreciate you. If you're here for the first time, hit that like button and stick around. Really appreciate you being here as well. Let's get to the Jonathan Bowden side of this conversation, or excuse me, Jonathan Bowlan side of this conversation, because I think that is probably the more intriguing portion of it. Broad Street Bullies, what up? I think that's probably the more interesting portion of this, because I don't think a lot of Phillies fans, and myself included, until I did the deep dive, knew a whole heck of a lot about him. So 81% of his pitches last year, fastball, slider, sinker mix. Got a pretty good percent of strikeout rates. 25.6% strikeout rate. Fastball up in the zone a pretty decent amount of time. But to me, the 2 pitches that I think are going to be the most useful are the slider and the sinker. Because he's going to throw them almost exclusively against right-handed hitters. I think he's probably going to face almost exclusively right-handed hitters if they can do that. Now, obviously, the 3-batter minimum puts a little bit of a wrench into that. But if he can get into a pocket where he's getting, 2 out of 3 righties or 3 righties in a row, I think that's going to be a really good spot for him. But to me, the 2 pitches that I think are the most important are the slider and the sinker. It's an interesting slider, because Ethan and I were watching, in his highlights. So we're watching highlight packages of, 15 or 20 pitches, right? It's an interesting slider because it's not a whole lot of horizontal movement. It's not that sweeper type of slider. It's not the heavy late break turnover type of slider, but it does get a pretty good amount of comparable vertical drop. It's, almost 3 inches of comparable vertical drop. It feels like it's a pretty tight, late moving slider. Like it's got that just enough bend at the end, a little bit of downward break that misses a lot of bats. And it's why, especially against righties, he got a 40% whiff rate on it last year with a 37% strikeout rate. And opponents as a whole just hit 234 against it. Now, in 64 at-bats against all of the opponents that he faced, he got 25 strikeouts and gave up just 5 extra base hits. So the slider, I think, is going to be the paramount pitch for him. And we've talked about the one thing that I know with Caleb Cotham in the past. Caleb Cotham, over his tenure with the Phillies, has almost required pitchers, especially bullpen pitchers, but almost all of his pitchers. And I don't know if this is directly related to Caleb Cotham, but it certainly feels like it is, has almost required the starting rotation and the bullpen to throw something with horizontal break and something with downward break. Think about splitters, sinkers, sliders, sweepers, all of those pitches. If you go through the pitch arsenal of almost every pitcher on the Phillies staff, most of them, if not all of them, throw at least one pitch that has east-west movement or west-east movement and one pitch with at least vertical movement. So I think about, Zach Wheeler added a splitter at age 33? Christopher Sanchez, one of the deadliest changeups in all of baseball. Aaron Nola's downward pitch, even though it struggled a little bit last year, Aaron Nola's downward pitch is the knuckle curve. It has that tumble through the zone. And then you think about the east-west, west-east type of stuff. Jesus Luzardo added a sweeper last year. Christopher Sanchez uses the slider. Zach Wheeler has an arsenal of pitches, right? But then you get into the bullpen. Kerkering's sweeper is the one you think of. Duran with the breaking ball and the splitter, which is one of the filthier pitches in all of baseball. You have all of these guys that have added or supplemented their arsenal with one of, or if not both of those two types of pitches. That, to me, feels like the type of pitcher that Caleb Cotham likes. And so for Jonathan Bowlan, the one thing that I think Caleb Cotham is going to be excited about is this splitter, because it does have that tight late break. It's not a heavy vertical, or it's not a heavy horizontal break, but good vertical movement to it. And I think it's probably one of his best pitches. Now, probably the most effective pitch that he used last year to right-handed hitters is the sinker. He runs that pitch on their hands quite a bit, 94, 95, gets up into 96 with it, sits in that mid-90s range with the sinker. And righties last year on the sinker hit 148 with a 148 slug, which means he had 0 extra base hits allowed on the sinker to righties and just 4 singles. He'll mix in the changeup against lefties. He throws that pitch against the left-handed hitters specifically. And the one thing that we did note, and Ethan, I was curious what we were talking about this before the show a little bit. I was curious your thoughts on it. 44%, just under 45% of his pitches were in the zone last season. But he threw nearly 68% of his first pitches for strikes. So that tells me he's the type of guy who likes to get ahead and then use the auxiliary stuff to get you to chase. Because he relies on chase a lot. 31% chase rate last year was the best of his, limited sample size. But he doesn't throw a lot of pitches in the zone. But if he throws a lot of first pitch strikes, it means it's get ahead and then get you to get yourself out type of arm. Another thing that I think Caleb Cotham likes of his pitching staff is a lot of good chase stuff.
Yeah, I guess being able to mix it up as the at-bat goes on is pretty interesting. I think maybe that's something, I mean, I'm not too in-depth with the sequence or frequencies at which they like to call their pitches, but I can definitely see that there is more technicality to it.
Sure.
Being get ahead, then kind of work with it a little later. I think that is probably an approach that's better than being behind, not throwing first pitch strikes and then having to rely on giving more advantage to the hitter later on.
We talked a lot about with Aaron Nola last year. His first pitch percentage was down. He's a guy that always in the zone early, right? Mm-hmm. And last year his first pitch strike percentage was down. And that's where the velo problem came into play, because I said, if he throws 90, 91, that's what he does. But he locates, good off speed, gets ahead, stays ahead type of stuff. Last year he wasn't getting ahead. And early in the year before the injury, you could tell he wasn't getting ahead, because then he was getting mashed with 89, 90 in the zone. If you're ahead in the count, pitching can be simple. Pitching can be get ahead, stay ahead. Pitching can be upsetting timing. Change speeds, work fast, throw strikes. Those are the three bedrock importances of pitching. Work fast, change speeds, throw strikes. You get ahead early, that's a huge advantage to you, especially if you maybe don't have elite level stuff. I think with Bowlan, if we're talking about the positives of this guy, I think maybe there's still a little bit left to get to. But he is almost 30 years old, and it doesn't take away from me being semi-frustrated about moving on from Matt Strahm.
Yeah, because you have to look at the deal and the large scope of
the
it.
totality of it.
Yeah, and this is the player that they had targeted and chose to acquire in this situation in exchange for a player that you are ultimately getting off of salary. You kind of have, as the Phillies, you have more of the decision making in who you want rather than hunting for just the best value, rather than picking a player that you would rather just have in this case.
So can we take a look at his numbers from last year? Here's Jonathan Bowlan's numbers from a season ago. You're going to see a lot of blurred out, color bars on that list because he didn't qualify, but made 34 appearances last year. It was really his first full season in the big leagues, and it wasn't really even a full season. A little bit over a strikeout per inning pitched. Walk rate, 17 walks in 44 innings, a 1.22 whip, primarily because he gave up 37 hits in the 44 innings pitched. But that bottom line, much like with Matt Strahm, is the big thing. He's pre-arb. He's $820,000. He does not become an unrestricted free agent until 2032. And even at that point, he'll be 35. Which we could go off on a tangent about the nonsense about pre-arbitration for, that's almost unfair because I don't even know if he gets a real free agent contract. He may not even ever get to that point, but that's a conversation for another day. The Phillies acquired this guy, first and foremost, priority number one, because of that $820,000. No question in my mind.
Right. It was the player that they targeted because they knew they had to shed salary and take something in return that they felt that they valued more so than the Royals. So, it's different when it's like an even for even type of deal where you're just trying to swap value. If your goal is to shed money, which it seems like in this case it was, your options are more limited, but at the same time you have the flexibility of choosing. So, that this is who they chose to go with because, they believe they saw something that is worth looking at it and worth growing to become a better player that can exceed the value that they are getting him at.
So he's out of options, like we've said. So it appears to me like he's going to make the team. So right this moment, I would say you have 6 definitive locks for your bullpen at this very moment. Duran, Keller, Kerkering, Bowlan from the right side, Alvarado, Banks from the left side. That's 6. Usually you carry 8, right? You go 13 and 13, 5 starters, 8 bullpen guys. My guess at this very moment is you have to factor in a long reliever of some kind. Does Kyle Backus play a factor? And do they keep Zach McCambley? Right now, that's the 3 that I would probably consider as the front runners for the final 2 spots. McCambley being the Rule 5 pick. Backus, does he make the team? In fact, I have to check. I don't know do you know off the top of your head, did you get a chance to see, does he have any options left? Because I don't know the answer to this question.
No, I would also have to.
We'll find that answer. So obviously he was optioned last year, so they've used at least 1. I don't know if he has any of the other 2 left still. But they have him, and then of course McCambley from the right side. And I imagine it's going to be some semblance of a long reliever. Whether that ends up being Taijuan Walker after they've acquired another starter, or maybe Andrew Painter makes the fold right away and he starts in the bullpen. I think that's probably unlikely, but I guess it's still a possibility. But I think that the final 2 bullpen spots probably come down to a guy that we haven't talked about yet, whether it's another free agent signing or a trade or whatever it may be, Backus, McCambley, and somebody to take the long relief role. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to get into the Murakami conversation as he is just over 72 hours away from having to make a decision as his posting period ends 5 o'clock Monday evening. We'll finish the Friday afternoon edition of today's show with a little Phillies trivia. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. We'll be right back after this. All right, so you found your special someone, that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. Now you know what the next question is. Well, before you even pop that question, you're going to have a million different questions about the perfect ring for your partner. That's where our friends at Bucci Jewelry and Design come into play, because you don't know, or maybe you don't know what the 5 C's are, how much money you're able to spend, what your budget is going to get you. It is a stressful experience. I've been there. That's why working with our friends Joe and Michelle at Bucci Jewelry and Design has been a game changer. They make the process seamless. They make you feel like family. You're not just a customer to them. You are one of one. They actually listen to you. They help you figure out what your partner is going to love, and then their team designs something completely custom right there in-house. There's no pressure. There's no pushy sales vibes. It's just good people who love what they do and do what they love. So next time you need that perfect piece, go see Joe and Michelle at Bucci's Jewelry and Design. 30 plus years in the game, voted Philly's #1 jeweler year after year. Over 1,000 5-star reviews. You can check them out at BucciJewelers.com and tell them that we here at PHLY sent you. All right, if you're looking for the dealership with the best inventory and super low lease payments in the Philadelphia area, you've got to team up with our friends at Kia of Cherry Hill and KiaofCherryHill.com. It's the place to go to choose from over 450 new Kias, including Tellurides, Sportages, K5s, Carnival, Souls, and so much more. And it's the hottest automotive brand in the country for a reason. 7 of their models received 2025 Car and Driver Editor's Choice Awards, which is amazing considering the fact that there were more than 450 models tested and only 20 models industry-wide received this award. And you want to compare that and combine it with the best warranty in the automotive business, 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain, and 5-year, 60,000-mile bumper-to-bumper. So stop in today, tell them that we here at PHLY sent you, and you'll receive up to $3,000 over Kelley Blue Book trade-in value following a trade-in appraisal. Listen, I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I just don't know why. Drive home in your new Kia today, just minutes from all bridges, and available 24/7 at... What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here, Ethan Hartley behind the scenes and producing and co-hosting and doing a whole heck of a lot of work today. So big thanks to him. Hit that like button for all the hard work that Ethan has done this afternoon. So we checked in on it. It does appear that Kyle Backus has at least one option remaining. We'll try to find the most credible source possible, but it does appear that way. So he could be a swing guy, could be sent down to Lehigh Valley to start the year if they feel that they want to add, somebody with the ability to throw a couple more innings. But man, so I'm watching highlights here. And again, it's just highlights. So I am a sucker for a lefty who has crossbody action on his release. And what I mean by that is, so he is set, his back foot is set as far to the right side of the rubber as he possibly could be. But he comes over in such a way that his right foot is over top of his left foot. So he basically, it's hard to do while I'm sitting down, but he's so far this way that he's shielded from the pitch or from the mound or from the plate, excuse me. And what it allows him to do, being facing this way, he's staring right at the runner. So I know that it's different for a submarine guy because if you start to get into this drop down stuff, like you're going to go to the plate. You're not throwing your pickoff move to first that way. But if you come set all the way this way and you're facing the runner, most pitchers with anything above an arm slot that's his basically have the ability to lift the leg and just sit there. Like if you really wanted to, you could sit and balance and look at the runner. Now, you're eventually going to get called for a balk of stop of motion. But what it allows you to do is shield yourself from the plate, which hides the ball better. I imagine he's probably a tuck the ball off the back hip type of guy eventually. Allows you to tuck the ball off the back hip and come straight up and face first base. That's incredible deception. And so while I'm sitting here like gushing over this guy's arm slot and delivery, I don't know if he's even a major league pitcher at this current moment, but I love this type of stuff. So once he comes set, because he's a submarine guy or close to it, he still can actually come set up here because he's going to dip. So he dips and the ball is hidden for a really long time. And then he's got such cross-body action that it doesn't really matter if he pulls back all the way and shows ball back here. He's slinging it from the other side, basically. I love the mechanics. I mean, they're wonky as hell, but I love the mechanics. I kind of just talked myself into this guy. Not as anything special, but like a front end of the bullpen, like come on out, especially, hey, here's Christopher Sanchez at 97 with a devastating changeup. Now go face the freaky delivery guy who throws 90 miles an hour.
We'll talk about just trying to get pickoffs as well. If a starter has a bad start and you need someone to come in, maybe shake things up a little bit and just give yourself any opportunity to get out.
It's a mix. Why not? It's a total mix up, right? Like I think about, did you see the graphic from the Blue Jays with Tyler Rogers and Trey Savage? So Trey Savage is like the ultimate over the head. He's at like a ridiculous percentile over his head release point. And Tyler Rogers obviously is true submariner. Mm-hmm. It was like, could you imagine these guys back to back in games?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be screwed up, man. Mm-hmm. Absolutely screwed up. All right, we were going to get to the Murakami conversation, and I do want to talk about it just briefly. But there was a comment in the chat earlier that I want to get to, and it was from Andrew. And Andrew says a couple different questions. Could the Bowlan move mean the end of Taijuan Walker? I don't think the two run in the same circle. I mean, it certainly could. If the Phillies are able to shed some salary, if a team is interested in acquiring Taijuan Walker to be a member of their rotation and they're willing to take on some of the money, then sure, it could certainly be a play. But you also have to remember the Phillies are a little bit thin at starting pitching depth at the current moment because Zach Wheeler's not going to be available. You're likely not bringing back Ranger Suarez. And I, right this moment, have absolutely no idea what Andrew Painter's timeline is going to look like. So you know for a fact you've got Christopher Sanchez. You know for a fact you've got Jesus Luzardo. You know for a fact you have Aaron Nola. That's all you know right this moment. And you know Zach Wheeler won't be ready. There's a lot of unknowns towards the back end of the bullpen, or towards the back end of the rotation, that makes me think Taijuan Walker is probably going to be in the starting rotation to start the year as the fifth starter. Unless one of two things. One, they go out and acquire an absolute big-time name like Tatsuya Imai, Framber Valdez, Michael King, who we didn't even get a chance to talk to, just signed for $25 a year. Gives you more understanding of what Ranger's going to get. Or they make a trade that we haven't, thought about. I would imagine that Taijuan Walker probably is in the rotation or at least in the fold to begin the year. So we talked about it last, Monday, Ethan, I think it was, when we talked about teams needing depth. Whenever we had Jim on, was it last Friday maybe? We had Jim Salisbury on.
I was not here for Jim.
The Phillies got really, really lucky in terms of only starting 10 different pitchers last year. Only starting 10 different pitchers. Teams don't do that. Teams start 12, 14, 17. God, how many different pitchers did the Mets start last year? 20?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but it sure feels that way, right? So I think the one thing with Taijuan Walker that we should keep in mind is the Phillies' depth in the rotation is not necessarily as deep as it once was. It's still extremely talented, but the depth isn't necessarily there. By the way, the Mets started 17 different pitchers last year. Now, some of them were spot starts and openers and stuff like that, but they started 17 different pitchers last year.
It's still a lot. Considering, them as the best example from what they started with in the beginning of the year versus at the end of the year.
3 rookies. Yeah. They had 3 guys make 20-plus starts. Senga, Peterson, Holmes. That was it. Canning, 16. McGill, 14. Minaya, 12. Everybody else was under 10.
Wow.
Including the rookies, Tong, McLean, and all those guys. They used a lot of pitchers last year. So to the first question, I think the Phillies' depth is probably the reason as to why Taijuan Walker will certainly be on this team. And secondly, I'm not so sure there's going to be a whole lot of, eating of contracts when it comes to Taijuan Walker. The second question from Andrew was, could them moving on from Strahm help them re-sign Luzardo this offseason? So again, I think that's probably not a same circle type of conversation where it feels to me like they want Jesus Luzardo back. I want Jesus Luzardo back. I don't know how you feel about it, Ethan, but I certainly would like Jesus Luzardo to assign an extension. But that, again, kind of plays into the 2027 pocket of money. And to answer your third question, will he hit free agency? I would imagine he probably wants to. I would imagine he probably wants to see what's available on the open market as a free agent for the first time in his big league career. I would have to think he's going to have a lot of suitors, and I would have to think he and his agent are going to want to see what's out there. He may very well end up re-signing with the Phillies, but I think at that very moment, he's going to want to see what's out there. All right, very quickly, Munetake Murakami is a little over 72 hours away. Munetake Murakami is a little less than 72 hours away from having to make a decision. His posting ends on at 5 o'clock on Monday afternoon. I have long said I don't have as much interest in him as I do in Okamoto, and I have long said I don't have as much interest in him as I do in Tatsuya Imai. Obviously a pitcher compared to a position player, but I don't have as much interest. The power is unquestionable. And you know that stat that was floating around, he hit like 090 against 95 miles an hour?
Yeah, I saw it's not true.
It's not true. He was at 230.
Yeah, but I also saw that the record keeping just isn't that well one way or another. So it's I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks, right? What happened? What did I say in the chat?
No, I spelled it wrong. I spelled it wrong
Okay.
on screen.
Murakami, got you. So is the power there? Unquestionably, it's there. No doubt about it. This could be a guy that immediately comes in and hits you 35 home runs. My concern is strikeout rates. And somebody the other day brought up that Shohei Ohtani's strikeout rate in his final year in Japan, I think it might have been Jared Carabas was talking about it on his pod, that his Shohei Ohtani's strikeout rate was actually higher than Murakami's strikeout rate. But there's a whole bunch of different factors that play into that. First of all, obviously, the pitching side of things, which is unquestionable for Shohei Ohtani. The second thing is Ohtani, I think Murakami's going to get a deal that may be worth more than he is worth. I've heard anywhere in the 8 to 150 to 8 to 200 range. And I do wonder if it's not per years. There was a report the other day that said like suitors may be interested in signing him, but to like a 3 or 4 year deal, as opposed to like the 6, 7, 8 year deal that we've come to expect from these elite level players that are getting posted and coming from Japan.
Yeah, not being stuck on the books if the transition doesn't work out well.
Right. So we've seen over the last few years, Yamamoto signed a big year deal. Worked out pretty darn well for the Dodgers so far. Guy's an ace, no question. Mm-hmm. Shohei Ohtani signed a pretty sizable years deal with the Angels. It's the best player, in my opinion, he's the most talented player to ever walk the planet. We've talked about that before as well. But we have also seen long-term deals that have not panned out as well. And that's been more, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think there's obviously better scouting, better due diligence, better understanding, and the players are just better as a whole. But like you think about Junichi Tozawa's type of guys that came over and were, okay, but they weren't the same pitcher that a lot of people expected to be. And even if you go and sign a long-term deal and you get 3 or 4 good years like the Yankees got out of Masahiro Tanaka, who was a little bit older when he came over, but you got like 3, 4 good years out of him, and then he was a fine middle of the rotation type of guy. I think teams are maybe a little bit hesitant to hand out 6 or 7 or 8 year deals, especially when somebody like a Murakami has that one glaring hole, which is, his in-zone numbers aren't as good as you'd hope they'd be, and the strikeout rates are certainly high. If it's a 3-year deal, every team in baseball is going to be interested, a 3, 4-year deal. If it's a 6, 7, 8-year deal, that's where you're going to see a lot of teams start to kind of flake off. Now, I have heard the Detroit Tigers are super interested in signing Murakami because they've been linked to Alex Bregman for 2 seasons now. And if they don't go out and get Alex Bregman, Murakami for the Tigers would make sense. Plug him in the middle of your lineup. They're not going to care too much about the bad defense. He could hit 30 or 40 home runs as long as they're okay with the strikeout numbers. That makes a lot of sense for them. But I am interested because I don't think there's been a whole lot of buzz around his market over the last 3 weeks, like I expected there to be when you see this, monster home run hitter. And like the Goliath home runs, they're there. No question about it. They are 100% there. But I am interested that this has drug on as long as it has. I wonder, A, if it ends up being a shorter term deal, and B, maybe a team that we don't expect ends up signing Murakami.
Yeah, I mean, right at the beginning of his posting, it seemed like, the normal suitors who were willing to spend a lot more money were the ones being headlined as the teams that could spend more. But now I think as time has gone on and maybe some of those suitors have backed out, there is more time to look at things and kind of optimize your decision making, and that might lead to more of the teams that are more money savvy feel more obliged to put their name in the hat, see what they can do, and come up with, because there's more of an opportunity that, this huge guaranteed contract at first that, as 6 to 8 years, as originally mentioned, now it doesn't seem as likely because these flaws are starting to kind of stir the original suitors away.
So let me ask you this, for the Phillies' sake specifically, and then I know we got to break and get to our final segment. If it were a 4-year deal, how much does that change your interest compared to the bigger 6, 7, 8 type of years?
Sure. It would feel better for me because, again, if the transition doesn't work out, we've talked about some of these major flaws in numbers. I mean, there are conflicting reports of the numbers themselves, but none seem too positive under 100 versus 230 doesn't really blow me away either way. That's still a concern coming into the picture. So I guess for the sake of just those years, I'm fine with it. But I think the bigger question is where does he play and
Sure.
and figuring all
Yeah,
that
I don't
out.
think he's a long-term third baseman.
Yeah.
And are you willing to invest in that type of player, knowing you've just invested in your DH already?
And you've just invested in your right fielder, so moving Bryce back to the outfield is
Probably unlikely.
yeah.
Right. All right, so let's take a pause real quick. The three-team trade in baseball, the rare three-team trade. Pirates acquire Brandon Lau from the Tampa Bay Rays. Interesting move. The Astros move their number 2 and number 7 prospect. They get Mike Burrows. So it's the Pirates, the Astros, and the Rays. The Rays receive Jacob Melton and Anderson Brito from the Astros. Astros get reliever Mike Burrows. The big player in the Pirates acquisition is Brandon Lau. Let's pause. We got one more break to hit. On the other side, we'll get into our Friday trivia question, and we'll wrap up this week's festivities here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. We'll be right back after this. Whether you're ready to level up your collection or get started into the trading card game, Arena Club is where you do it. They have original slab packs that bring the thrill of ripping packs, and you combine that with the power to buy, sell, and trade all in one convenient place. They make it incredibly easy to chase your grails, flip your slabs, and keep your collection growing with the cards that you love. What you're going to do is you'll get authentic graded cards instantly on Arena Club, and then you decide, are you going to sell it? Do you want to hold it? Or do you want to have that card shipped directly to you? And you can decide to take an instant cash offer based on market value with just one click. You cash in. There's absolutely no guesswork. Arena Club is one of the most trusted names in the game, and they're the only group that I recommend to make sure you are getting up-to-date, authentic cards and knowing exactly what your card is worth and giving you the chance to do it quickly. Right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase simply by going to arenaclub.com/PHLY and using the promo code PHLY. Once again, 20% off your first slab pack. Zuli here, and let me tell you, as the winter has gotten into full swing, we know that it is chilly, cold, and the last thing that you need are your home projects piling up, especially the ones that are either going to keep the inside not warm or you got to be outside for it. That's where our friends at Ace Hardware and Ace Hardware Home Services come into play, because they bring the local trusted pros that come right to your front door to get your home ready now that the colder months have set in. And whether it's something small like a heating tune-up, or maybe it's a plumbing fix, or something significant like generator issues or emergency repairs, their experts handle it all. There's no guesswork, there's no stress. It's just awesome local pros who get the job done right with satisfaction guaranteed. You know, now that it's cold, you don't want to walk into the house after a cold day and your heater not be functioning at full capacity. You don't want that number to be in the 50s. You want to make sure that your house is comfortable, and you do that with our friends over at Ace Hardware and Ace Hardware Home Services. Find the help that you need for your next project, and you can do it as early as today, right here at Ace Hardware Home Services. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zuli, Ethan Hartley here, and we're going to just about wrap up today's show with our... You all right back there?
I just realized why all that.
I just saw Ethan throw his head back like in disgust. The look that every producer has done at some point behind the scenes where something goes wrong, and it was just, Believe me, I've made that as a producer myself. I've made that face hundreds of times.
It just clicked to me. I'm like, why are all the ad breaks cutting short? I didn't do this when I first edited all them, and then now I just figured out why, and I was just like, oh wow.
If that's the worst that happened, it's not that big of a deal. I tell you that all the time. We don't save lives. We're not teachers. You know, we're not EMTs, right? Like it's not that big a deal if you mess up here. Anyway, we're going to do our trivia in just 1 second. But before we do that, I want to say thank you to everybody on our streaming services, our Roku, Samsung, Xfinity streaming platforms. Head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. It's officially time for overtime. All right, let's get into our Friday trivia question of the day. And it made me think about this question because of Matt Strahm being traded. And if you remember, back when Matt Strahm was signed brought in by the Phillies at the beginning of his Phillies tenure, he made a handful of starts in the beginning of that time because the Phillies needed him to be a starter. They were so thin in the starting rotation. He made 10 starts in 2023. So our trivia question of the day is about Matt Strahm and starting pitching. We talked about how the Phillies had only had to sign start a specific amount of guys last year. So I went back to 2023, Ethan, and the trivia question today is, The Phillies, since 2023, have started 18 different pitchers, have started at least one game. And I'm not including guys that made opening or opener start, type of start. So like 1 inning type of opener starts. So I will tell you this. There were 8 different pitchers in 2023 who made at least a handful of starts that weren't openers. In 2024, there were, the same amount of guys, same, bulk guys, but there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pitchers in 2024, which gets us to 13. And then in 2025, there was 1, 2, 3. So I'm sorry, it's 16. 16 different pitchers have made at least 2 starts in a season for the Phillies. How many can you name?
2 starts. Okay. So we'll start with the easiest. Nola, Wheeler, Sanchez, Ranger, Walker.
Yep, that's 5.
Luzardo.
Luzardo is 6.
I'm trying to.
So you have the top 6 from 2025.
Okay. Here was just a random. Did Syndergaard get 2?
2 other guys in 25 that made multiple starts.
Okay, we'll start with 25 before it. Abel, Lazar, Futz.
Abel, yes. Lazar is, we are not counting Lazar, who actually, I don't know if Lazar ended up making any starts, but Lazar, if he did, was a spot starter, was the opener. Doesn't count in this conversation. Abel, yes, was number 7. He made 6 starts. You're missing 1 guy in 2025.
Oh.
So you have Sanchez, Luzardo, Suarez, Wheeler, Walker, Nola, and Abel so far.
Lorenzen is one of them.
Lorenzen is on that list for 2024. Yep. Yeah. He made, for 2023. I apologize. He made 7 starts for the Phillies in 2023. And by the way, we obviously the prerequisite to the show or to the trivia, Strahm's already included. So we're giving you Matt Strahm.
Okay.
So you now have the top 7 from 2023. So you're missing 1 guy in 23. You are missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pitchers in 24 and 1 pitcher in 25.
So I'm still missing someone from
last season.
Okay. That's what I'm fixated on. Bueller?
Walker Bueller made 2 starts in 25. Yep, he's the last guy.
Cool. Okay, 2020.
So 23, you're only missing 1. 24, you are missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pitchers. And I've kind of changed it. The opener thing, I've changed the parameters to made at least 2 starts.
Yeah.
So a couple of these guys were openers.
I can't believe I said Syndergaard and then realized that's 22.
Syndergaard was 22.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. How many? Wait, sorry. How many?
1
names?
more in 23. 5 guys in 24.
5 in 2024. That's a lot.
Couple good guesses are correct in the chat, so you can kind of parse through those.
Mercado, I can't remember the first
Michael
name.
Mercado is on that list for 24. He made 2 starts in 2024.
Vinny V.
No, not Vinny V. Syndergaard is 22, does not make the list. So you have 4 more in 24.
Tyler Phillips.
Tyler Phillips made 7 starts for them. Yep.
7, wow.
3 more from 24. And you're still missing 1 from 25. I will tell you, one of the guys in 24 he was an opener both times. He's still currently in the Phillies bullpen.
Not Kerkering.
It is Kerkering.
Really?
He made 2 starts. Yep.
Oh.
He started. Do you remember in 24 they were sliding into the All-Star break and got obliterated by Oakland in a series right before the All-Star break? And they used everybody, so it was like, Kerkering, you're starting.
Wow.
He pitched only 1 inning, but
yeah,
Kerkering made 2 starts. You have 3 more in 2024. You have the 6th most starts, the 8th most starts, and you have 2 more in 2024. The 6th most starts and the 8th most starts. And then 1 more in 2025, the 8th most starts.
Can't believe I haven't thought of the 25.
One guy I think you should get because he was pitching really well in 24 before an injury.
Before an injury, really well.
Was like sneaky, like one of their best pitchers in April and early May in 2024.
Early last season, hot start. Oh.
The other guy in 24, junk ball and lefty. I think had 1 good start and then got hit around pretty bad. I want to say maybe through, I don't want to say it was a complete game, but may have been a complete game against Cleveland.
Lorenzo was already said. That's the only.
No, sorry, it wasn't a complete game. I'm thinking of Phillips' complete game. No, but this guy pitched okay for his first couple of starts. Now, junk ball and lefty, didn't throw hard. He's on that list. And then you have one other guy in 24 who was really, really good to begin the season.
And like a fair starter, and then, or
he made 7 starts throughout the season.
So more than just like spot starts. What?
And then the last one that you missed in 23, lefty, started a game definitely in the NLCS of 2022.
What?
I want to say it was.
Syndergaard started the World Series.
Syndergaard started the World Series.
Yeah.
It's the reason Syndergaard started was because this guy in the NLCS got rocked in an inning. He was also a lefty.
What? 20?
So you've got 2 lefties and 1 righty who was very, very good.
What?
Posted a 2.65 ERA through 17 appearances that year.
Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. I'm having. It's like kind of coming to me, but.
The Phillies ended up trading one of the lefties to the Pittsburgh Pirates for Rodolfo Castro.
Oh. What? I can literally see the face. No.
All right, you give up on that one?
Bailey Falter.
Bailey Falter is correct.
Bailey
Made
Falter.
7 starts in 23. So you have 2 pitchers left in 24.
So that's where the hot start and
No. That was one of the lefties.
Okay.
So the 24, you have a junk ball and lefty and a guy who was killing it out of the gate when the Phillies were winning like every game. He did not pitch. He made 3 appearances in 25 in the major leagues. The other guy, I want to say, he made 33 appearances out of a team's bullpen in 25 and was really quite good with a 2.63 ERA out of their bullpen.
What team?
He was with Cleveland last year.
So I'm looking for a Philly to Cleveland.
Pitched in 65 innings last year for Cleveland out of their bullpen.
Ben Lively was the first name.
Not Ben Lively.
But yeah, that's way off.
I'll give you a couple more seconds because we got to get out of here.
This is going to kill me.
I think the one is going to hurt you. This one, if you get it, it's a good poll.
I'm like kind of like floating around the guy who had the hot start, but I just can't. I don't know.
How quickly we forget how good Spencer Turnbull was to start the year last year, 2 years ago.
What?
Spencer Turnbull was the one in 2024.
Yeah.
The lefty who was really good in Cleveland's bullpen last year, Colby Allard.
Oh, yeah. I know the name. I wouldn't have gotten that one. Turnbull, yeah.
Turnbull, I think, should have been gotten.
Yes, yeah.
Because he was pitching really well before he got hurt.
And then got hurt, and I don't know where he's now, but yeah.
All right.
That's a killer.
So, good work by him. You got 15 of the 17. It's not a bad poll.
Yeah.
Good work by you. Good work by everybody in the chat. Big thanks to everybody who hung out with us in the chat today. Monday, our next show, by the way, is going to be our next episode at the Reading Terminal Market. we will be on a little bit earlier than we normally are. Next Monday, we will be on at 11:30. Live from the Reading Terminal Market. Me, Ethan, Jamie Lynch. I think Anthony's going to stop by for a little bit, hanging out with us as well. So we will do all of that on Monday, and then we won't talk to you again until after the holidays, which will be Friday the 26th. So for all of you out there, have an excellent weekend. I hope you got all of your holiday shopping done. It's going to be a weird weekend of weather. It's going to be super warm right now, and then it's going to get super cold later. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We are in the holiday season, so spread cheer, be nice to people, be kind to people. You don't know what people are going through right now. I tell you that all the time, but specifically this week, be kind to people. We'll be back on Monday. We love you all in the chat. Big thanks to Ethan Hartley for producing the show. We'll be back on Monday from Reading Terminal Market at 11:30 right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then.
We all silly like the mayor.